The village of Umoma was known for its rolling green hills, clear streams, and warm-hearted people. In the heart of the village lived Olachi, a young woman whose beauty was often whispered about in admiration. But beyond her physical appearance, it was her heart that truly shone. She was gentle, humble, and hardworking. Orphaned at a young age, Olachi had learned to navigate life without the luxury of parental care. The villagers respected her resilience and admired how she carried herself with dignity despite her hardships. She lived with her late father's sister, Mamugo, a kind but strict woman who always reminded her that dignity and self-respect were more valuable than riches. Her closest companions were Nnenna and Adaugo, two other beautiful young women from the village. They did everything together, fetching water, gathering firewood, and attending village dances. But unlike Olachi, Nnenna and Adaugo had a hunger for attention. They wanted to be admired, especially by the Prince of Umoma, Ifeanyi, the heir to the throne. Prince Ifeanyi was everything a nobleman should be: wise, just, and disciplined. He was admired not only for his regal bearing, but for his strong principles. Many young women longed to be his bride, but he had shown interest in no one. Whenever Olachi, Nnenna, and Adaugo walked to the stream, her friends would whisper about the prince. "Do you think he will notice me today?" Adaugo asked one morning, adjusting her head tie to show more of her long, braided hair. "He has eyes, doesn't he? Surely he must notice how beautiful I am," Nnenna added with confidence. Olachi only smiled, shaking her head. She admired the prince's wisdom, but never imagined herself as someone who could capture his attention. She was, after all, just an orphan, a girl with no family name or wealth. But fate had plans that no one could foresee. The stream in Umoma was the village's pride. Its water was clear, cool, and sacred. Every morning, maidens gathered there, not only to fetch water, but to socialize, gossip, and display their beauty in hopes of catching the eyes of a potential suitor. On this particular morning, the sun was warm, and the village air was filled with the scent of fresh palm trees. Nnenna and Adaugo adjusted their wrappers, ensuring their movements were graceful. They knew the prince often rode past the stream with his guards, and today could be the day he finally noticed them. Olachi, however, focused on her task. She knelt by the water, filling her clay pot with careful precision. "There he is," Adaugo whispered excitedly. Prince Ifeanyi walked past, with his guards following closely behind. His deep brown skin glowed under the sun, his posture straight and regal. Nnenna quickly adjusted her posture, tossing her long braid over her shoulder. Adaugo giggled loudly at something unimportant, hoping the prince would turn his head. But he didn't. His eyes passed over the group of girls without interest. If anyone, he seemed more interested in the birds in the trees than the maidens vying for his attention. "Why does he never look at us?" Nnenna muttered in frustration. "I don't know," Adaugo sighed. "Maybe we should try harder." Olachi remained silent, hiding a small smile. She wasn't desperate for his attention. If he noticed her, fine. If he didn't, life would go on. But unbeknownst to her, the prince had noticed her. He had noticed the quiet girl who never tried to impress him, the girl who fetched water with grace and dignity, and he was intrigued. The day the prince finally spoke to Olachi was like any other ordinary day, with no sign that fate was about to shift. She was alone in the forest, gathering firewood. Her friends had chosen to stay back in the village, preparing for a festival. She walked quietly, stacking logs into a bundle when she heard footsteps behind her. It was Prince Ifeanyi. He stood a few feet away, dressed simply but still exuding royalty. His warm brown eyes studied her, a small smile playing on his lips. "You are Olachi, aren't you?" His voice was deep and steady. Olachi hesitated before nodding. "Yes, my prince. I see you often at the stream with your friends, but you are different from them." She frowned slightly. "Different? You do not seek attention, yet you hold it," he said simply. Olachi felt her face grow warm. She quickly lowered her gaze. "I only mind my business." "And that," the prince said, "is what makes you interesting." There was a silence between them, but it wasn't awkward, it was comfortable. "I would like to be your friend, Olachi," he said finally. She looked up at him, surprised. The prince wanting to be her friend? "If it pleases you, my prince," she replied softly. And just like that, an unexpected friendship was born. The next day at the stream, Olachi and her friends were filling their pots when a sudden silence fell over the other maidens. Nnenna turned her head and gasped. "The prince is coming with his guards." Adaugo's heart raced. This is it. They quickly adjusted their wrappers, positioning themselves in the most flattering poses. If the prince had ignored them before, today would be different. But then something shocking happened. Prince Ifeanyi walked straight past them. He didn't spare them a glance. Instead, he stopped before Olachi. "Good morning, Olachi," he said warmly. The entire stream was silent. Olachi, caught off guard, managed to nod. "Good morning, my prince." The prince smiled and handed her a small bundle wrapped in silk. "A gift for you," he said. Olachi hesitated before unwrapping it. Inside were royal beads and expensive wrappers, the kind only noble women wore. Adaugo's jaw dropped. Nnenna's face darkened. "Why? Why her?" someone whispered. Olachi looked up at the prince, eyes wide. "My prince, this is too much." "Nothing is too much for a woman of worth," the prince interrupted gently. And with that, he turned and walked away. The air was thick with shock. Nnenna and Adaugo stood frozen, disbelief and jealousy creeping into their hearts. Olachi, still holding the royal gift, felt their stares burning into her skin, and she knew nothing would ever be the same again. That night, the tension between the three friends reached its peak. "Why him, Olachi?" Adaugo demanded, pacing furiously. "You knew how much I wanted him." "But he came for me," Olachi said simply. "You could have turned him down for my sake," Nnenna snapped. Olachi's patience thinned. "How can I reject him because you like him? What if he doesn't want you?" There was silence between the women. The truth hurt. From that moment, jealousy replaced friendship. And in the shadows of the night, Adaugo and Nnenna silently vowed they would not let Olachi win so easily. Nnenna and Adaugo could not sleep that night. Their minds replayed the scene at the stream. How the prince had ignored every other maiden and chosen Olachi, an orphan with no wealth or noble name. "What does she have that we don't?" Nnenna whispered angrily. Adaugo clenched her fist. "She acts so innocent, but she has been deceiving us all along. She must have been secretly trying to get the prince's attention while pretending to be humble." "We cannot let this happen," Nnenna said firmly. "If the prince marries her, She will become a princess and we will always be beneath her. Adaugo's face twisted with bitterness. We have to do something. Their jealousy had turned into something darker, a need to destroy the friend they once cherished. Days passed, and the prince continued to show his affection for Olachi. Unlike other men, he did not hide his interest. He walked with her in the marketplace, sat beside her under a big odala tree, and even carried small loads for her when he found her at the stream. The village was buzzing with gossip. Some were happy for Olachi, believing it was fate rewarding her good heart. Others, especially the jealous maidens, whispered behind her back. Then one fateful evening, Prince Ifeanyi took a bold step. He rode into Olachi's compound with his guards, carrying gifts of tubers of yam, palm wine and kola nuts, symbols of marriage intention. Mamugo rushed out, her heart pounding. "My prince, what brings you to my humble home?" "I have come to formally declare my intention to marry Olachi," he said with confidence. Olachi, who had been inside, froze at his words. Nnenna and Adaugo, who had been spying from the road, felt their world shatter. Nnenna and Adaugo could no longer bear the humiliation. Olachi had everything they wanted: the love of the prince, the respect of the villagers, and a future as a princess. "We have to stop this marriage," Adaugo said through clenched teeth. "But how?" Nnenna asked. Adaugo's eyes darkened. "We will spread lies about her. If we make the royal family doubt her, they will stop the wedding." "But the prince trusts her," Nnenna hesitated. "Then we will have to make the lies big enough that even the king and queen will listen." And so the plan was set in motion. The next morning, whispers spread like wildfire through the village. "Have you heard? Olachi has been seeing other men secretly. I heard she uses charms to make the prince love her. The royal family will never accept her now." The rumors reached the palace, and though the king and queen had always trusted their son's judgment, they summoned him for a discussion. "Ifeanyi, we have heard troubling things about Olachi," the king said. "She is a good woman, father," the prince replied firmly. "But the people are saying—" "Let the people talk," Ifeanyi interrupted. "I know her heart. She is innocent." The queen smiled. "Then you have our blessing, my son." Nnenna and Adaugo's plan had failed. The day of the wedding came, and despite the rumors, the village gathered in excitement. The king and the queen stood proudly as the prince took Olachi's hand in marriage. She was adorned in the finest George wrappers, her wrists decorated with coral beads. But in the crowd, Nnenna and Adaugo watched in bitter silence. They had lost. That evening, as the festivities continued, they approached Olachi. "We are sorry," Nnenna said, forcing a smile. Olachi looked at them, her heart still aching from their betrayal. "I forgive you," she said, "but things can never be the same again." And with that, she walked away, leaving them to drown in their regrets. The morning after the grand wedding, Olachi woke up to the soft scent of freshly prepared meals and the rhythmic sounds of the palace maids preparing for the day. She was no longer just the beautiful orphan girl of the village. She was now the prince's wife, the future queen of Umuoma. As she stepped out of her chamber, she was greeted by the palace attendants. They bowed respectfully, addressing her as Lolo, the title given to a prince's wife. "Good morning, Lolo," they greeted in unison. Olachi, still adjusting to her new reality, gave a shy nod and smiled. She had lived her entire life in a small hut, fetching water and firewood, yet here she was in a palace adorned with gold and royal carvings. Prince Ifeanyi approached, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "How do you feel, my love?" "Like I am living in a dream," she admitted. "Then let's make it a beautiful one," he said warmly. But even in the midst of her happiness, she couldn't ignore the lingering pain from Nnenna and Adaugo's betrayal. Days passed, and Olachi was still adjusting to her new status. One afternoon, as she sat in the palace courtyard, she heard familiar voices. She looked up and saw Nnenna and Adaugo standing at the gate, waiting to be granted entry. "My queen," they say, "they wish to speak with you," one of the palace guards announced. Olachi hesitated. She had already forgiven them, but their betrayal had left a scar on her heart. "Let them in," she finally said. As they stepped forward, the air was thick with awkwardness. "Olachi, we came to see how you are doing," Adaugo said. "Yes, we miss you," Nnenna added quickly. Olachi looked at them, searching their faces for sincerity. "Did you miss me when you tried to ruin my happiness?" The guilt was evident in their eyes. "We were wrong," Nnenna admitted. "Jealousy blinded us. But please, don't shut us out forever." Olachi sighed. "I have already forgiven you, but things can never go back to how they were. Friendship is built on trust, and you both broke it." The words stung, but they knew she was right. "Can we at least be on good terms?" Adaugo pleaded. "We can be cordial," Olachi said softly, but not like before. They left the palace feeling the weight of their loss, not just of the prince, but of a true friend. That evening, as Olachi sat beside the queen, Queen Amaka spoke in a tone of wisdom. "You handled them well today," she said. "I just spoke the truth," Olachi replied. The queen nodded. "But be careful, my dear. A person who can betray you once can do it again. Keep them at arm's length." Olachi listened carefully. She had always believed in the good in people, but perhaps she had been too trusting. "I will be careful, Nne," she assured. "Good, because you are no longer just Olachi. You are the prince's wife, and not everyone will be happy about that." Weeks turned into months, and Olachi grew into her new role. She learned palace customs, advised village women, and worked with the prince to improve the lives of the poor. One afternoon, she visited the village market, accompanied by guards. She noticed a group of young maidens talking about marriage. "A man must be wealthy before I agree to marry him," one of them said. "Yes, love is beautiful, but money makes it sweeter," another added. Olachi smiled and spoke gently. "A man's true worth is in his heart, not just his wealth. A man who is kind, faithful, and principled is more valuable than gold." The young maidens fell silent, reflecting on her words. The news of Olachi's wisdom spread, and soon she became known as not just a beautiful wife, but a woman of great wisdom. One evening, as the prince and Olachi sat, watching the sunset, he held her hand firmly. "My love, do you know why I chose you?" Ifeanyi asked. "Tell me," Olachi said softly. "Because you were never desperate to impress me. You were content with yourself, and that made you stand out." Olachi smiled. "And do you know why I love you?" "Why?" "Because you are a man who knows what he wants and does not allow distractions to sway him." He kissed her forehead. "A man must stand firm in his decisions, or he will lose what is truly valuable." As they sat together, the lesson was clear. True love is not found in desperation, but in patience, loyalty, and knowing one's worth. Their love had survived betrayal, jealousy, and trials, but it remained unshaken. And in the hearts of the people of Umuoma, their story became a lesson that would be told for generations. As Olachi settled into her new life, she soon realized that being the prince's wife was not just about love and luxury. It came with responsibilities. One morning, the queen summoned her. "Olachi, my daughter, you are now a leader among the women of Omoma. You must learn to carry yourself with wisdom and grace." "I will do my best, Nne," she assured the queen. The queen smiled. "That is why Ifeanyi chose you. But be careful, there are those who still wish you to fail." Olachi nodded. She knew the queen was right. Although she had forgiven Nnenna and Adaugo, she could still feel their bitterness. And there were others in the village who doubted her ability to be a good wife to the prince. She had to prove them wrong, not with words, but with actions. One afternoon, Olachi visited the market to buy some items for the palace. As she walked through the stalls, she overheard two women gossiping. "Did you hear? Some say the prince only married Olachi out of pity," one whispered. "Yes, what does she have that others don't? She was just an orphan." Olachi clenched her fist, but took a deep breath. She would not let their words affect her. Later that night, she told Ifeanyi what she had heard. The prince took her hands in his and looked deep into her eyes. "Olachi, you do not need to prove anything to anyone. Our love speaks for itself. Let them talk, but let us live." His words reassured her, but she knew one thing. She had to show the village that a woman's worth was not in her background but in her heart. One evening, Olachi received a message that Nnenna and Adaugo wanted to see her. She hesitated but agreed to meet them at the stream where they used to fetch water together. When she arrived, their faces were full of forced smiles. "Olachi, we have missed you," Adaugo said sweetly. "Yes," Nnenna added, "and we have been thinking, the prince needs more wives. You cannot give him everything he needs alone." Olachi stiffened. "What are you saying?" "We want to be his wives too," Adaugo blurted out. Olachi felt a wave of anger wash over her. After everything they had done, after she had forgiven them, they were still trying to take what was hers. "You have both shown me exactly who you are," she said coldly. "And I will not allow you to bring your wickedness into my home." She turned and walked away, leaving them standing there ashamed. Nnenna and Adaugo, humiliated by Olachi's rejection, became desperate. They started spreading new rumors, saying Olachi had used charms to make the prince fall for her. The gossip spread like wildfire. Some villagers believed it, others defended Olachi. One day, a group of elders approached the palace. "Your Majesty, we have heard disturbing things. Some say the prince was charmed," an elder said cautiously. The king laughed. "I raised my son well. Ifeanyi is a man of wisdom. If he chose Olachi, it is because he saw her worth." The elders felt embarrassed, but Olachi was hurt. "Why do they hate me so much?" she asked Ifeanyi that night. "Because you have what they wanted," he said simply, "and they cannot stand that you got it without begging for it." Olachi understood now. Jealousy had no reasoning, no logic. It simply existed to destroy. The next morning, Olachi went to the palace courtyard where the village women had gathered. She stood tall, her voice steady. "My sisters, let me say this once. A woman's value is not in how much she fights for a man, but in how much she values herself. I did not steal the prince from anyone. He saw my worth and chose me. If you spend your lives chasing what is not yours, you will always live in pain. But if you focus on becoming better women, happiness will find you." The crowd was silent. Some lowered their heads in shame, others nodded in agreement. Nnenna and Adaugo, standing at the back, realized they had lost. They could never bring Olachi down. That night, as Olachi lay beside Ifeanyi, she smiled. She had won, not through fighting, but by standing in her truth. And in the years to come, she would be remembered as the queen who taught women to know their worth. This story teaches us that a man must stand by his woman and not let rumors shake his love. A woman's value is not in chasing a man, but in knowing her worth. Let us always have in mind that true strength is in the rising above betrayal and proving oneself through actions and not words.